So I've been reading through Ecclesiastes, and Ecclesiastes is an interesting book. It's fairly actually depressing in a way. Um, it is and it isn't because of the pursuit that Solomon had. I mean, he was the man who had the wisdom that nobody else had in this world. And it seemed that he, had a very worldly wisdom. I mean, there was godly wisdom there too, but he talks about his wisdom. And he tries whatever he can to find purpose, meaning in this life. And so we see this man, Solomon, trying to do any and everything to find purpose and meaning. And actually, I was equating this. So today I was reading Ecclesiastes chapter 2, and there's a couple of things that really stood out here. Let me read a couple of things. So one of the things I did, and if you want to do that too, it's kind of just a neat thing. I was highlighting all the I's, because Solomon is doing these things, and he is going to find what gives life purpose and what gives life meaning. And so he begins with trying this and that and that and that. And everything seems to come up short. I'll read you a couple of things here. He says, verse 3, I searched in my heart how to draw out my flesh with wine, and leading my heart in wisdom, and to lay hold on folly. He was going to do both. He was going to lay hold on folly too, and on, and drink a lot of wine. And then he says, until I might see where the good for the sons of men is. So whether it is in folly or whether it is in good, well, there's so many things that he tries. He says, to see that which they should do under the heavens in the number of days of their life. So what should people do that will bring them this life meaning under the short days of their lives? And so he goes on this quest, and he there's so many eyes here. It's insane. There's probably like 20 of them in this chapter. And he tries and he tries and he tries to do all, and you can read this, but it seems like everything he tries comes out to be vanity, comes out to be a chasing after the wind, useless, completely, there are temporary rewards, but not lasting rewards. And every time he thinks he finds something, then he thinks about it again, and then he says, no, this is not, this is not good. This is not bringing complete satisfaction. So you see here in verses 10, he said, and all that my eyes asked, I did not withdraw from them. I withheld not my heart from all joy, for my heart rejoiced from all my labor, and this was my portion from all my labor. So he found that, listen, I did everything that my heart wanted to do, and I rejoiced. And his reward for what he did was exactly that his heart rejoiced for all his labor, and that was his portion. That is as far as it gets. But is it enough? Is it enough just to live life and do life and then pass? Is that enough? And so Solomon, he goes on. Then he says in verse 11, then I faced on all my works that my hands had done, and in all the labor that I had labored to do. And behold, all is vanity and striving after the wind, and there is no profit under the sun. And he goes on and he talks about wisdom. Is wisdom, well, the wise are better than those who are fools. But then he comes to the conclusion that, hey, but they both die the same way and nobody remembers them. What advantage is there to that? So he says in verse 17, he comes to a point in his life And he says this in his pursuit. Verse 17, and I hated life, because the work that is done under the sun is an evil thing to me. For all is vanity and striving after the wind. Yea, I hated all my labor. First he hates his life, and then he hates all his labor. Why? Which I did under the sun, a labor that I must leave it to the man who will be after me. And who knows if he will be wise or a fool? Yet he shall rule among all my labor, which I labored and acted wisely under the sun. This is also vanity. One of the thoughts I had here is like, the eye will never satisfy. And it is exactly the outcome that people never ever think about. People do not think about their lives and their labor and the things that they do in relation to when they die. What's going to happen to it? Why am I working so incredibly hard? Why do I give, it's like the story that I heard about the father who wanted to work his way up in the company, and he just worked and worked and worked and worked, and at the expense of his family. So at the funeral came, and the workers had such praise to give him, and they all just said, this man was so dedicated, and he had all the praise that you could ever want. But when his children came, when it was their time to come and speak, they said, my father, he was never there. My father was absent. My father was not dedicated to us at all. And every child had just such negative, and it was such a sad thing, because this man gave his life to his job and to his work. And for what? For the temporary reward of recognition and praise, which then he dies and he does not get to keep, and he will be remembered no more. That is the lot that we are seeing. This is the lot of a godless life. And you know what? It does temporarily satisfy and bring a temporary reward. But one thing here, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. The enemy never wants us to think that far ahead. That, listen, everything that I have, who is it going to go to? You see the selfishness of man here in verses 18, where he said that I must leave it to a man who will be after me. Well, the self wants to hang on to everything. We are selfish creatures by nature. And so we see that this man, Solomon, tries everything that he can by himself to try and find purpose for himself. And everything is coming to nothing. Actually, when you come all the way down to it, he says, I hated life in verses 17. And then in 18, yea, I hated all my labor, because everything is completely useless if it is done by yourself and for yourself. It's like I wrote up here, the eye will never satisfy. So now he comes to the end, verse 22. For what is there for man in all his labor, and in the striving of his heart, which he did as a laborer under the sun? For all his days are pains, and his task is grief, and his heart does not even lie down in the night. Even this is also vanity. Even at night. And, I can attest to that too, because, even as I work here on the farm and I do things, and many times work keeps me awake because I'm trying to think ahead and trying to think and plan. And so things keep me awake at night. But I do not find my purpose in my work. So this is what he said. There is hope in this. Verse 24. It is not good that he should eat and drink and make his soul see. He said, is it not good that he should eat and drink and make his soul see good in his labor? This I also saw, that this was from the hand of God. God is the one who gives us enjoyment in what we do. Now God comes into the picture. He says, for who can eat or who can enjoy apart from me? That is what God says. Who can do anything apart from God that is purposeful? It says here, verse 26, last verse, for God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy to a man who is good in his sight, a man or a woman. But to the sinner, he gives the task of gathering, to heap up, and to give to him who is good before God. This also is vanity and striving after the wind. So we see here that God breaks the cycle, that incredible cycle of a depression, a lack of purpose, a lack of finding meaning and identity. It is in Christ where that comes out. It is in God where we finally come to a place where God gives us purpose and enjoyment. Life is not about the eyes. It's about, God, what you want me to do. What is your plan for my life? The eyes, that is what God came also to destroy. The I-centeredness of us, the selfishness. I want to do this, I want to do that. But it's like God saves our soul through Jesus Christ. And then all of a sudden it's, Lord, what do you want me to do? Jesus, what is it? What is the plan that you have for me? And so rather than coming to rather than living for the eyes, which never satisfy, we got to live for the King. And he is the one who satisfies. So be blessed. And we'll talk some more maybe about Ecclesiastes later.